Hello everyone, welcome to the Green Man channel. Hope you're all doing good and well. So for this Sunday night's album review, in what may be the last album review on the channel in 2022, I'm reviewing the 6th-year album from progressive rock slash stoner slash psych band Elder and their release Innate Passage, which came out last week on Friday via Stickman Records. The album is 5 tracks, it's 53 minutes in length. In Elder, in their lineup for this album, we've got Nick DeSalvo on vocals and guitars, Jack Donovan on bass, Mike Risberg on guitars as well and keyboard duties, and George Edert is on drums here, and you can see them on my laptop screen there behind me. This is obviously the follow-on album from 2020's Omens, an album which I thought was a really good album, really enjoyed that. Thought it took them in a slightly sort of, that was maybe slightly less on the sort of heavy low-end sound that Elder has, that album, a bit more light, a bit more kind of exploring, I think, some of the more ambient aspects of Elder's sound. Whereas this album, I think, goes back a bit more to a lot of their sort of, that heavy stoner guitar riffing sound. There's a lot of that on this album, but it does still draw on more of their, I would say, later era, more textured soundscapes that they've brought in with the likes of Reflections of a Floating World and 2020's Omens. And I think they have this amazing ability, this band, to really build up quite complex, quite layered songs. You have to really, really listen carefully to an Elder song, because not only are they usually quite long, I mean, most of the tracks on this album are 10 minutes plus, but you also realise that they can transition with so much ease between quite different guitar techniques and styles pretty suddenly, and if you blink you miss. And when I kind of, before doing this review, felt like, God, I'm still not quite ready to review this album. I've got to listen to the album again. And then I was thinking of reviewing it earlier today, and I was still like, no, I need to listen to the album again. And it's just, they're one of these bands you really, because they're prog, and I think because they are more technical than they may at first seem to the kind of untrained ear of Elder. If you just listen to them once, you may just think, well, that was just a lot of kind of, loud bass sounding guitars and some pretty moments, and yet you don't realise necessarily that there are some beautiful transitions and really clever stuff that they do within each of their tracks. And that's the thing with Elder, is you have to give yourself time to digest the complexities, I think, in their music, because otherwise you can just hear the sound of this band without appreciating the musicianship. So going into these tracks on this album, and I would say, I think if you like Reflections of a Floating World, you will enjoy this album quite a bit, because I would say this is slightly more, for me, it's slightly more Reflections than Omens, but I'd be interested to hear in the comments what you think of that. But yeah, Endless Return. The album starts with Catastasis, which was quite a slow track for me, kind of building into the album more. I'd say this album has a mood throughout. It's very much a journeying, kind of lots of interesting soundscapes. And Catastasis kind of, for me, is maybe at first it was a track I would say may have been my favourite track, but over time now I've realised that the middle tracks are really, really pretty outstanding tracks on here. Because Endless Return, I think, is a great song. That's the second track on the album. And actually, I think it showcases that Nick DeSalvo does some really good vocals in this track. And I slightly prefer his vocals, I think, on this track to some of the other tracks and on some of the other albums as well. He actually sounds a little bit like, about between the 6 and 8 minute mark on this song. He reminds me a bit of Brian Daly from Mastodon, which is, I think is a good thing. And there's some really good sort of vocal accompanying moments on this song. Some lead guitar moments you have to listen out for a little bit, because the bass sound of Elder's always quite prominent. So you have to look out for the lead guitar moments a little bit more, I think, and they're really good on this song as well. Yeah, really, really good song, Endless Return. Coalescence was an interesting track with the use of the mellotron coming into focus towards the end of the song, which I really liked. Very proggy, very old school, very 70s prog, using the mellotron sound towards the end of that song. Coalescence was a good song as well. And, Merged in Dreams was the epic 15-minute track on the album. which for the most part I thought was an epic, really, really good song. Lots of interesting guitar riffs, left, right and centre, changes, which, as I say, there's just lots packed into that song. It does for me go on a little at the end, I found, with the slower part. I mean, that's part of the atmosphere of the album, you could argue, but I felt that was a little bit sort of, went on a bit too long for me. And the final track, The Purpose, I loved that closing track. It was a bit kind of very dreamy. I really actually like when Elder switch between stoner and dreamy. I don't mind what they choose, actually, but I like their dreamy stuff quite a bit. I have a tendency to enjoy dreamy textures, as you know, of my love of all things ambient and shoegaze, etc. Really liked that last track, The Purpose. Lovely tones, lovely textures. Good vocal moment again, and a great way to finish the album. So my final score for this album, I think, all taken together, I will honestly say I still think the technicality of this album still makes me feel that even though I've tried, I may still need a bit more time with this one, to be honest, before I can really give it a final kind of score. So I'll preface this by saying this is very much an indicative score for this album. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 because I think it's really good. I think it's definitely a grower. I don't think you can easily listen to this album once or twice even, or 3 times or 4 times. This needs several listens to begin to kind of, I think, really appreciate it. But once you do, once you notice those special moments on this album, you're going to really like it, and you're going to sort of probably start to think, oh, this is getting close to Reflections of the Floating World in terms of quality, I think. But anyway, that's my review for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Do drop in the comments what you thought of this interesting album, Innate, fascinating album, Innate Passage by Elder. Let me know how you rate this one and how you think it compares to the rest of the discography. Otherwise, from me for tonight, until the next time, I will soon post, I think, an update on the community tab, which I now have. Some of the schedule, some of what I'm planning before the end of the year. Of course, that end of year list is getting closer and closer, but I have revealed the date. That will be the 17th of December when I put that up. So I am very much looking forward to seeing all your lists as we draw into December. Otherwise, from me, take care, everybody. Bye for now.